The restaurant was glowing softly under the warm light of crystal chandeliers. Every table was perfectly set, with shining silverware, crisp white napkins, and sparkling glasses. The smell of roasted meat and freshly baked bread filled the air, mixing with the faint scent of flowers on each table. It was the kind of place where people came not just to eat, but to feel the comfort of luxury, a place where every detail spoke of elegance and wealth. Tonight, a very important guest had arrived. He was a millionaire CEO, a man who had built a huge empire from scratch, a man whose decisions affected thousands of people. He was known for being strict, serious, and always expecting perfection, whether in his work or anywhere he went. He walked into the restaurant with quiet confidence. His steps were steady and deliberate, like someone who was used to being in control. The staff noticed him immediately, and even though many of them had served wealthy people before, there was something different about him. He had an aura of power that made everyone instinctively respectful. He wore a dark tailored suit, simple but elegant, and his shoes shined as though polished to perfection just for tonight. As he moved through the restaurant, the soft music seemed to fade, and every small movement of the staff was focused on ensuring his comfort. He chose a table near the window, where the city lights shone softly against the night sky. The chair creaked lightly as he sat down, a small sound that contrasted with the silence he demanded around him. His eyes scanned the room for a moment, noting the placement of every vase, every candle, and every table setting. The manager approached quickly, bowing slightly, and asked him what he would like for dinner. The CEO ordered a steak, cooked exactly medium rare, accompanied by roasted vegetables and a glass of a fine red wine. The manager nodded and left, knowing that this would be a meal that had to meet every single expectation of a man who had no patience for mistakes. Among the staff, there was a young girl working as a maid's daughter. She had been helping at the restaurant for some months, carrying trays, clearing tables, and sometimes assisting with small tasks in the kitchen. She was quiet, careful, and very observant. While the CEO's presence caused most of the staff to feel a little nervous, she simply watched, noticing the little details that others missed. She saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers tapped lightly on the table, and the small frown that appeared on his face as he glanced at the papers he had brought with him. The CEO had his laptop and a few documents open. His eyes moved quickly across the pages, reading figures, charts, and notes. He murmured under his breath occasionally, a low sound that almost blended with the music. He was clearly thinking about important matters, decisions that could change the course of his business empire. Yet, despite being surrounded by luxury and comfort, there was a hint of unease on his face. The restaurant was supposed to be a place to relax, but tonight, it seemed that his mind was occupied by problems that he could not set aside. The maid's daughter noticed this. She moved quietly around the tables, offering refills and clearing plates with gentle movements, careful not to disturb the important guest. But inside, she was curious. Something about the CEO's tension made her wonder what was troubling him. She had seen many people in the restaurant before, some happy, some angry, some sad. But this man's concentration and slight frown suggested that he was dealing with something serious. She didn't want to interfere, but she wanted to help in any way she could, even if it was just by being attentive and careful in her work. As the evening went on, the lights dimmed slightly, and the music became softer, creating a peaceful atmosphere for the diners. The CEO ordered his steak, and it was brought to him exactly as he requested. He examined the plate, noting the grill marks on the meat, the arrangement of the vegetables, and the way the sauce was drizzled carefully on the side. He cut a piece of the steak and tasted it. His expression didn't change much, but a small nod indicated that it met his standards. Even a man as powerful as he was, he appreciated perfection when he saw it, and the kitchen had delivered it flawlessly. The maid's daughter continued her work, moving discreetly, observing without being noticed. She watched the CEO's subtle movements, the way he checked his watch, the way he glanced at the door as if expecting someone, and the occasional sigh that escaped his lips. She had seen people in power before, but rarely someone who carried both authority and tension so visibly. She wondered what kind of note could reach someone like him, someone so focused and careful, and yet, Tonight, she had an opportunity to deliver something important. Other diners glanced at the CEO, whispering quietly among themselves, but he paid no attention. His focus was elsewhere, on the weight of decisions and responsibilities that no one in the restaurant could fully understand. The staff, though nervous, moved efficiently, knowing that any mistake could be noticed. But the maid's daughter, with her calm demeanor and careful attention, stood out not for her nervousness but for her observation. She noticed things that others overlooked, small details that could make a difference. The CEO finished a few bites, his mind still partly on the meal but mostly on the business matters that had brought him here. Yet, he didn't realize that something unexpected was about to happen, something that would catch him off guard and change the course of his evening. The maid's daughter, holding a small folded note, prepared to approach him. Her heart raced slightly, not out of fear, but out of awareness of the importance of what she was about to do. She moved with care, ensuring that no one else noticed, and that the timing was perfect. She reached the moment when she could quietly place the note in a way that the CEO would see it without drawing attention to herself. As she approached the table, the CEO looked up briefly, noticing her for the first time. Their eyes met for a moment, a silent acknowledgement that something was about to happen. He didn't know what, but he sensed that this small figure in the luxurious restaurant might carry something significant. The maid's daughter gently handed him the note, her hands steady even though her heart was beating fast. The CEO's eyes widened slightly, a hint of surprise crossing his face. He took the note, still seated, and unfolded it carefully, not yet knowing the content but aware that it was unexpected. This simple act, small in appearance but powerful in effect, marked the beginning of a chain of events that would leave the CEO frozen in disbelief. The quiet elegance of the restaurant, the careful attention of the staff, and the presence of the young maid's daughter all converged to create a moment of suspense and significance. It was a moment where the ordinary intersected with the extraordinary, where a small gesture had the potential to influence a man whose life was usually controlled by power, money, and meticulous planning. And it all began with the quiet entrance of the note, delivered by the observant eyes and steady hands of someone many would overlook, but whose courage and awareness would make an unforgettable impact. The CEO held the note in his hands, his eyes scanning the words with growing curiosity and surprise. The restaurant around him seemed to fade into the background. The soft music, the clinking of cutlery, and the murmur of other diners no longer mattered. All his attention was on the small piece of paper that had appeared in his life without warning. It was simple, yet the words written on it carried a weight he had not expected. The note revealed a secret or critical information, something that had been hidden from him, perhaps by someone he had trusted or a part of a business deal he had thought was secure. The CEO felt his heart beat faster as he processed each line, understanding the implications one by one. The maid's daughter, standing a few steps away, watched carefully without moving. She could see the flicker of recognition in his eyes, the slight tightening of his jaw, and the momentary pause that indicated shock. She knew that what she had delivered was important, but she also knew the CEO's reputation for being unshakable. For him to show even a hint of emotion meant that her message had struck a chord. She stayed calm, allowing him the space to react, not wanting to interrupt the moment that had begun with her simple act of courage. As he continued reading, the CEO's mind raced. He thought about every person, every deal, and every situation that might be connected to the information in the note. The restaurant, which had seemed a place of comfort and relaxation, had suddenly become a setting for revelation and decision. He was aware of the contrast. Here he was, surrounded by luxury and elegance, yet facing a truth that might challenge everything he thought he knew. His focus sharpened, and he leaned slightly forward, carefully folding the note back to read it again. Each time he read the words, he understood the significance more deeply. Around him, the staff moved quietly, sensing the shift in his demeanor. They could see that something unusual was happening, though they did not know what. Some of the servers exchanged quick, silent glances, realizing that this was not an ordinary evening. The CEO, who usually maintained a composed, almost intimidating presence, was visibly affected. He did not speak immediately, instead taking a moment to absorb everything. This pause was rare for him, and it added to the tension in the air. The maid's daughter remained composed, her small figure almost unnoticed by others, yet she held the center of the moment with quiet strength. He looked up briefly from the note, glancing around the restaurant as if searching for the source of this revelation. His gaze settled on the maid's daughter, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. In that moment, he recognized the courage it took to approach him, to hand him this note without fear. The realization made him pause again, not just at the content of the message, but at the manner in which it had been delivered. This was not the action of someone seeking attention or reward. It was the act of someone who knew the importance of honesty and truth, and who had risked something to ensure it reached him. The CEO's thoughts began to organize, moving from shock to calculation. He considered the potential outcomes of the information in the note. Was it a warning of danger, a revelation of betrayal, or a hint toward an opportunity? The words, though few, were precise and clear, and he understood that action would be required. The quiet elegance of the restaurant contrasted sharply with the storm of thoughts in his mind. Each detail of the surroundings, the polished silverware, the soft glow of candles, the gentle murmur of diners, seemed irrelevant compared to the importance of the message he now held. The maid's daughter, noticing the shift in his demeanor, stayed steady. She knew that the moment she had created could change the course of his evening, and perhaps even more. Her actions had been deliberate, guided by a sense of responsibility and courage. She had seen the opportunity, taken the risk, and delivered the message with care. Now all she could do was observe, to allow him the space to process, to understand, and to react on his own terms. Her heart beat a little faster, not out of fear, but in anticipation of the consequences that her small action might bring. The CEO folded the note carefully and placed it on the table, his mind still racing. He picked up his fork and knife, but the steak on his plate now seemed secondary. Every bite felt slow and deliberate, as if he were trying to ground himself while considering the significance of what he had just learned. The flavors of the food, which normally would have pleased him, were overshadowed by the importance of the note. He glanced occasionally at the maid's daughter, recognizing the bravery it took to approach him. In that moment, he realized that value and intelligence could be found in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes, people who are overlooked can hold the keys to crucial truths. Other diners continued their meals, unaware of the silent drama unfolding at one particular table. The restaurant remained beautiful and luxurious, but within the space of a few moments, the ordinary had turned extraordinary. A single note, delivered with courage and care, had introduced a moment of suspense, reflection, and realization. The CEO, usually unshakable, now faced a situation that required careful thought, patience, and perhaps a change in perspective. He understood that decisions made in response to this revelation could have long-lasting effects. The maid's daughter moved quietly to clear a nearby table, her movements graceful and attentive. She was aware of every glance, every movement of the CEO, but she did not intrude. Her small act of delivering the note had already set the stage for change. She understood that sometimes the most important work is done silently, without recognition, yet with impact far greater than the effort might suggest. Her heart swelled with a quiet pride, knowing that she had done the right thing, and that her courage had created an opening for truth to be acknowledged. The CEO set down his cutlery and leaned back in his chair, folding his hands together. His expression was serious, thoughtful, and for the first time that evening, contemplative in a way that suggested deep internal processing. He was aware that action would be required, but he also recognized that patience, observation, and careful consideration were necessary before any steps could be taken. The note had introduced clarity into a situation that had been confusing, but it also demanded wisdom in response. He appreciated the subtlety and honesty of the maid's daughter, realizing that her courage had provided him with an opportunity to act decisively and wisely. Time seemed to move slowly in the restaurant as the CEO absorbed the meaning of the note. The elegance of the surroundings, the gentle lighting, and the soft music all created a backdrop for a moment that would be remembered. The maid's daughter continued her work, unseen by most, yet fully aware of the effect her small action had caused. She understood that influence is not always loud, and that sometimes the quietest acts carry the most power. She had handed over a piece of paper, but she had also handed over truth, courage, and responsibility. The CEO glanced around once more, ensuring that the moment had not been interrupted. He nodded slightly to himself, a subtle acknowledgement that he understood both the significance of the note and the integrity of the person who delivered it. He recognized that this moment could alter decisions, relationships, and outcomes in ways that would extend far beyond the walls of the restaurant. He set the note aside, but the impact lingered, filling him with both urgency and awareness. He realized that the maid's daughter had not just given him a message. She had given him insight, perspective, and a reminder that honesty and courage can come from any place, any person. The rest of the meal continued quietly. The CEO ate slowly, savoring the flavors but always with one eye on the implications of the note. Each bite reminded him of the contrast between the ordinary luxury surrounding him and the extraordinary importance of the information he now held. He appreciated the skill of the chef, the elegance of the presentation, and the calm of the restaurant, but in his mind, the note had taken precedence over everything else. The maid's daughter observed discreetly, noting the subtle signs of his contemplation, the way he folded his hands, the occasional glance at the note, and the momentary flickers of emotion crossing his usually composed face. By the time the CEO finished his meal, the tension had not fully lifted, but there was a new sense of focus. He understood the importance of acting carefully, of considering each factor before making decisions. The note had been more than a piece of paper. It had been a catalyst for reflection, awareness, and potential change. The maid's daughter had created a moment that combined courage, insight, and timing, and in doing so, she had left a lasting impression on one of the most powerful men in the room. As the CEO prepared to leave, he carefully folded the note and placed it in his pocket. He took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief, surprise, and determination. The maid's daughter stepped back, returning to her duties with quiet pride, knowing that she had made a difference in a moment of importance. The restaurant continued its evening as usual, unaware of the impact that had unfolded at a single table. Yet for the CEO and the maid's daughter, the evening had marked a turning point, a reminder that courage, honesty, and awareness can create powerful changes in ways that no one could predict. The CEO sat quietly at his table, the folded note resting beside his plate. His mind was still racing, replaying every word he had just read. The information was unexpected, important, and perhaps even life-changing in terms of his business and personal decisions. He leaned back slightly in his chair, running a hand across his face, taking deep breaths to steady himself. The restaurant was alive around him, but he felt detached from it. The soft chatter of diners, the clinking of glasses, and the gentle music now felt like background noise to a drama that had quietly unfolded in his life. The note had shifted the balance, and he knew he had to think carefully before moving forward. The maid's daughter, still near the table, continued her work with calm efficiency. She wiped down a nearby surface and arranged glasses on a tray, but she kept a careful eye on the CEO. She could sense the weight of the moment, the rare vulnerability that he was displaying in a public space. She knew that even the smallest movement or gesture on her part could affect the delicate situation. Her heart was steady, her mind focused, and though she was only a young worker, she felt the significance of her actions. She understood that courage was not always loud. Sometimes it was silent, subtle, and deliberate. The CEO unfolded the note once more, reading it again slowly to ensure he had not misinterpreted anything. Each word seemed to carry layers of meaning, revealing connections and truths he had overlooked. He noticed subtle hints and implications that required careful consideration. As a man used to control and precision, he valued clarity, but he also understood that some matters required patience and intuition. The note had provided both, and he recognized the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. One wrong step could have consequences, but so could inaction. He needed to weigh his choices carefully. He glanced at the maid's daughter, considering her perspective. She had delivered the note without hesitation, without seeking reward or attention. Her courage had been simple, pure, and effective. He realized that integrity could be found in the most unexpected places, and that wisdom was not confined to titles or positions. Her act of honesty and bravery had given him something far more valuable than information. It had reminded him of the importance of human connection, trust, and perception. He felt a quiet respect for her, acknowledging the weight of her courage in a world where many might have ignored the opportunity to speak truth. As he continued to absorb the information, he thought about the potential impact on his business. There were risks, opportunities, and consequences to consider. The note might reveal a betrayal, a hidden problem, or a chance to prevent something disastrous. Each possibility required careful attention, and he understood that any reaction had to be calculated. He picked up his fork again but found himself unable to focus on the food. The steak, once a highlight of his evening, now seemed secondary. The flavors were familiar, the texture perfect, but his mind remained occupied with the unfolding situation. The restaurant, the elegance, and the service were no longer the focus. The note had shifted the priorities entirely. The maid's daughter moved past him to attend to another table, but she did so in a way that allowed the CEO to remain undisturbed. She knew that her presence should not overwhelm the situation. Her eyes occasionally flicked back to him, noticing subtle changes in his expression, the tightening of his jaw, the narrowing of his eyes, and the moments when he paused, seemingly lost in thought. She had learned from experience that observation was as powerful as action. By noticing these small details, she could understand the gravity of the situation and her role within it. She was aware that her courage had initiated a ripple effect, and now it was important to maintain balance and patience. The CEO leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table as he considered his next steps. The note had opened his eyes to possibilities he had not seen before. It had forced him to reevaluate relationships, reassess strategies, and think about the people he trusted. He realized that information alone was not enough. Understanding context, intention, and human behavior was equally critical. The maid's daughter had given him more than a warning or revelation. She had given him insight into the importance of vigilance, observation, and trust. Her simple act of bravery had created an opportunity for him to respond wisely and with clarity. Other diners remained largely unaware of the silent drama unfolding at the table. The restaurant continued with its usual rhythm, waiters moving gracefully between tables, glasses being refilled, plates cleared, and soft conversations taking place. Yet, in one corner, a quiet tension lingered, an invisible thread connecting the CEO and the maid's daughter. It was a moment that existed outside the ordinary flow of the evening, a moment that carried meaning far beyond what was visible. The CEO, accustomed to dealing with complex situations, now recognized the subtle power of observation, patience, and quiet courage. The CEO picked up the note again, this time placing it carefully in his pocket. He did not want to lose the information, but he also knew he needed to process it further before taking any action. The moment was delicate, and hasty decisions could lead to unintended consequences. He observed the maid's daughter one last time, noting her calm and attentive demeanor. Her presence had been pivotal, and he acknowledged silently the bravery it had taken to approach him in such a manner. Her actions reminded him that strength and insight could be found in unexpected places, and that listening to those who might be overlooked could reveal truths that others missed. The CEO allowed himself to relax slightly, though the weight of the revelation lingered. He looked around the restaurant, noticing details he had previously overlooked. The soft reflections of candlelight on polished surfaces, the subtle arrangement of flowers, the careful coordination of staff. Yet, despite these familiar comforts, his mind remained centered on the implications of the note. He understood that his response, his decisions, and the timing of his actions would shape outcomes far beyond the walls of the restaurant. The maid's daughter resumed her duties with quiet efficiency. She cleared a nearby table and adjusted the seating arrangement, but she remained aware of the CEO's reactions. She sensed that her simple act of delivering the note had initiated a chain of events that might lead to important changes. Though she was young and in a humble position, she felt a sense of accomplishment. Her courage, her observation, and her timing had allowed her to participate in a moment of significance. She understood that influence did not always come from authority or wealth. It could come from insight, honesty, and careful action. The CEO glanced around once more, noting the interactions of staff and patrons. He realized that life often provided opportunities in subtle ways, that moments of truth could appear unexpectedly, and that recognizing them required attention and humility. The note had reminded him that even a brief, simple gesture could carry profound weight. It had revealed connections, intentions, and consequences that he might not have noticed without the maid's daughter's intervention. Her bravery had changed the course of his evening and perhaps influenced decisions that would extend far beyond the restaurant. As the evening progressed, the CEO remained at his table, occasionally reviewing the note mentally and assessing its implications. He reflected on the importance of courage, honesty, and observation in human interactions. The maid's daughter, moving quietly through the restaurant, embodied these qualities. Her actions had demonstrated that influence and wisdom could emerge from unexpected sources, and that paying attention to those often overlooked could provide critical insights. The CEO felt a renewed sense of awareness, understanding that his success and decisions were not solely based on power or intellect, but also on recognizing the value of human perspective and integrity. By the time he prepared to leave, the CEO had reached a deeper understanding. The note had not only delivered critical information but had also provided a lesson in observation, courage, and trust. The maid's daughter had acted with foresight and bravery, and her presence had created an opportunity for him to respond with clarity and wisdom. He gathered his belongings carefully, folding the note and placing it securely in his pocket. He rose from his chair, casting a brief, appreciative glance at her before moving toward the exit. The maid's daughter continued her work, her heart steady, her mind aware of the impact of her actions. She had played a role in a moment of significance, demonstrating that honesty and courage could resonate even in the presence of power. The restaurant continued its evening, unaware of the quiet yet profound events that had unfolded at one table. The CEO's steps toward the exit were purposeful, reflecting his intention to act thoughtfully on the revelation he had received. The note, once a small piece of paper, had become a symbol of trust, courage, and insight, shaping the course of events in a way that neither the restaurant nor its patrons could fully understand. In that quiet evening, the ordinary had transformed into the extraordinary, and the maid's daughter had proven that even the smallest acts could carry immense significance. The CEO returned to his office the next day with the note still in mind. Its words had not faded from his memory, and he could feel their weight pressing on his thoughts. The office was quiet, filled with the hum of computers, the rustle of papers, and the faint buzz of the air conditioning. Usually, the sounds of the office blended into the background for him. But today, every small noise seemed sharper, as if reminding him of the importance of focus. He sat at his desk, unfolded the note again, and reread it. Each word carried meaning he had not fully grasped before. The clarity it provided was valuable, but it also came with responsibility. He realized that his next steps needed to be careful, deliberate, and guided by both intellect and intuition. As he pondered the note, memories of the restaurant came back vividly. The soft glow of the chandeliers, the clinking of silverware, and the quiet efficiency of the staff all seemed to frame the moment when the maid's daughter had handed him the note. He remembered her calm eyes, her steady hands, and the courage it had taken for her to approach him. He understood that her bravery had created an opportunity for him to see what others had missed. It was a reminder that the most significant insights often come from unexpected sources, and that the value of a person could not always be measured by their position or status. He felt a newfound respect for her, realizing that integrity and courage were rare and powerful qualities. The CEO leaned back in his chair, letting the office surroundings fade as he concentrated on the implications of the note. It was not just information. It was a key that could unlock understanding, guide decisions, and perhaps even prevent mistakes or uncover hidden threats. He began to think through every possible scenario, weighing risks and benefits, considering the people involved, and assessing the outcomes. His mind moved quickly but deliberately, connecting dots that had previously seemed unrelated. The note had illuminated patterns and relationships that he might have overlooked otherwise. It was a moment of insight, and he knew that acting on it wisely would require patience and careful thought. Meanwhile, the maid's daughter went about her daily work, still in the same restaurant, yet carrying a sense of quiet pride. She did not seek attention or reward, but she was aware that her action had made a difference. Her mind reflected on the courage it took to hand the note to someone so powerful, and she understood that her instinct to act had been correct. Sometimes, she thought, life presents moments where silence would be safe but action is necessary. She had chosen the harder, braver path, and the results were already unfolding. She moved carefully, noticing the details around her, observing the reactions of others, and understanding that even small actions can have a lasting impact. The CEO in his office began to make lists and plans. He noted the key points from the note, prioritized the most pressing issues, and considered the potential outcomes of each choice he could make. The information required him to reflect not only on business decisions but also on human relationships. Trust, loyalty, honesty, and judgment were all intertwined in the message he had received. He realized that understanding people, not just numbers or deals, was critical. The note had reminded him that even a single act of honesty or courage could influence powerful outcomes, and that listening to those often overlooked could provide clarity and insight. Hours passed, yet the CEO remained focused, fully absorbed in thought. He considered how the note might change the direction of projects, influence partnerships, or even alter personal interactions. Every decision seemed heavier than usual, but he felt ready, guided by the awareness brought by the maid's daughter's action. Her courage had illuminated a path, and now it was his responsibility to walk it with wisdom and care. He reflected on the value of paying attention, of observing beyond the surface, and of appreciating the integrity of others. The note had also brought a moment of humility. The CEO, accustomed to being in control, realized that power alone could not provide all the answers. Insight often came from those who had a clear perspective, who were honest, and who were willing to act with courage. The maid's daughter had reminded him that influence does not always stem from wealth, position, or authority, but from character, awareness, and moral strength. He felt a deep respect for her and for anyone who acts with integrity even when no one is watching. This realization stayed with him as he continued to plan, analyze, and reflect. Later, as he walked through the office, he began conversations with key team members, subtly inquiring about matters related to the note. His approach was different now, more observant, more attentive, more focused on understanding both facts and human motives. He noticed nuances in responses, subtle cues in body language, and patterns in behavior that had previously gone unnoticed. The insight from the note, combined with his careful observation, allowed him to gain a clearer picture of the situation. The information was powerful, but it was the perspective and clarity it provided that made it truly valuable. He understood that acting with discernment was as important as having knowledge. Meanwhile, the maid's daughter reflected on the events of the previous evening. She thought about the courage it took to hand over the note, the fleeting eye contact with the CEO, and the quiet acknowledgement she had sensed from him. She realized that integrity and action often intersect in small, quiet moments that can carry profound consequences. She understood that her role had been small but crucial, and that her awareness and decision had opened a door for change. Her pride was quiet, tempered by humility, but it was a steady confidence that she had done what was right. The CEO's thoughts continued to circle around the implications of the note. He understood that immediate action could be risky, but inaction could be worse. He began to draft strategies, considering the short-term and long-term impacts, and balancing caution with decisiveness. Each decision required careful thought, as it could affect multiple people, projects, and outcomes. He reflected on the importance of listening to insights from all sources, particularly those who might not usually have a voice in decision-making. The maid's daughter had provided a perspective that he would not have received otherwise, and he recognized the rarity and value of such contributions. Over the next few days, the CEO implemented small changes in the way he approached his work. He engaged more thoughtfully with his team, asked more questions, and paid closer attention to subtle signs and cues. The note had been a catalyst, prompting him to adjust his approach and to value perspectives that might have been overlooked in the past. He recognized that leadership was not only about making decisions but also about perceiving truths, understanding people, and acting with integrity. The quiet courage of the maid's daughter had sparked a transformation in his thinking, a reminder that insight and action often come from unexpected sources. The maid's daughter continued her routine at the restaurant, but she carried a quiet awareness of the impact she had made. She noticed small changes in the environment, the staff being slightly more attentive to details, the subtle respect she received from colleagues who recognized her capability, and the quiet acknowledgement that her actions mattered. She understood that even small acts of honesty and courage could resonate far beyond immediate surroundings. Her experience reinforced her belief in doing what was right, even when it seemed insignificant, because the consequences could be greater than anyone anticipated. The CEO, reflecting on the note, decided to take further action. He arranged meetings with trusted advisors, carefully reviewing the information and exploring the best ways to address the situation. The note had illuminated not just facts but also ethical considerations, human behavior, and the value of attentiveness. He realized that his response needed to be measured, fair, and guided by both reason and morality. The impact of the maid's daughter's simple act of courage had extended into his professional world, influencing decisions and perspectives in a profound way. The lesson stayed with him. Courage, honesty, and attentiveness are powerful tools. They can influence outcomes, shift perspectives, and inspire change. The maid's daughter had demonstrated that even small actions could carry weight beyond their immediate context. Her bravery had allowed him to see clearly, act thoughtfully, and consider factors he might have ignored otherwise. The CEO felt gratitude, respect, and a sense of renewed purpose. He understood that leadership was not just about authority or control, but about listening, observing, and valuing insight from all sources. By the end of the week, the CEO had taken meaningful steps based on the note's content. He had made decisions, communicated effectively with his team, and acted in ways that aligned with both his business goals and his ethical values. The note had been more than information. It had been a guide, a reminder, and a catalyst for change. The courage of the maid's daughter had set this process in motion, highlighting the importance of honesty, bravery, and awareness in even the simplest actions. The maid's daughter continued her work at the restaurant, quiet and composed, unaware of the full scope of the impact she had created. She remained diligent, attentive, and principled, carrying the knowledge that small acts could resonate far beyond what was immediately visible. The CEO's reflection and actions demonstrated that insight can come from unexpected sources, and that respecting and recognizing such contributions can lead to meaningful change. Together, the CEO and the maid's daughter, though in different worlds, had created a moment that intertwined courage, honesty, and thoughtful action, leaving a lasting impression that neither would soon forget. The CEO returned to the restaurant a few days later, but this time it was not for a meal in solitude. He had made arrangements to meet with a small group of trusted associates and advisors, bringing them to discuss matters that had been illuminated by the note. The restaurant felt familiar, yet the atmosphere carried a new significance for him. The lighting, the soft music, and the elegant setting now seemed to echo the moments when important revelations could quietly unfold. As he entered, he noticed the maid's daughter moving efficiently, attending to tables with her usual calm precision. She looked up briefly, and he gave her a small, appreciative nod. There was no need for words. The acknowledgement was understood. The meeting began, and the CEO spoke with clarity, drawing on the insights he had gained from the note. His associates listened closely, sensing a shift in his approach. There was a calm, thoughtful quality in his voice, a deliberate focus that reflected the depth of his contemplation. He discussed the situation, highlighting the importance of observation, honesty, and timely action. Though he did not mention the maid's daughter directly at first, his emphasis on valuing insight from unexpected sources made her influence quietly apparent. His team took note, understanding that leadership required attentiveness and respect for perspectives that might otherwise be overlooked. During the conversation, the CEO shared the critical points derived from the note. He outlined possible risks and the actions needed to address them. Each point was presented thoughtfully, demonstrating both strategic awareness and ethical consideration. He emphasized the importance of integrity, honesty, and fairness in all decisions. It was clear that the note had not only provided important information but had also shaped his approach to leadership, encouraging a balance between decisiveness and moral responsibility. His associates were impressed by the depth of his insight, recognizing that something extraordinary had guided his thinking. Meanwhile, the maid's daughter continued her work quietly, unaware of the full extent of her influence. She noticed the CEO occasionally, observing his interactions with the associates and the way he carried himself with calm authority. Though she was only a small part of the environment, she sensed that her action had contributed to this moment of clarity. Her courage and attentiveness had created a ripple effect, and the results were now visible in the careful, thoughtful way the CEO navigated a complex situation. She felt a quiet satisfaction, understanding that even small acts could resonate in profound ways. As the meeting progressed, the CEO reflected on the human side of leadership. The note had reminded him that decisions were not just about numbers, contracts, or deadlines, they were about people, trust, and relationships. He emphasized empathy and understanding to his team, encouraging them to consider not only the technical aspects of a problem but also the human implications. The insight provided by the note had highlighted the value of paying attention to details, noticing courage and honesty in unexpected places, and acting with wisdom. His words carried weight because they were informed by experience, reflection, and a newfound appreciation for the power of small, thoughtful actions. After the meeting, the CEO requested a private moment with the maid's daughter. She approached, a little nervous but composed, as he spoke quietly, expressing his gratitude for her courage and honesty. He acknowledged that her simple act of delivering the note had created a significant opportunity for him to act wisely. The recognition was sincere and understated, reflecting his respect for her integrity rather than offering any superficial reward. He encouraged her to continue observing, learning, and acting with courage, noting that insight and integrity were qualities that would serve her well throughout life. The maid's daughter felt a mix of pride and humility. She had acted without seeking recognition, yet the acknowledgement from the CEO reinforced the importance of courage, attentiveness, and moral strength. She realized that even small actions, when guided by honesty and awareness, could create meaningful change. Her quiet bravery had not gone unnoticed, and it had influenced decisions that extended far beyond the immediate environment. The experience strengthened her understanding of the value of doing what is right, even when the stakes are high. The CEO then returned to his office with a renewed sense of purpose. He implemented further measures based on the insights gained from the note and his reflections. He adjusted strategies, refined communication with his team, and strengthened relationships with key partners. The decisions were guided not only by logic and business acumen but also by ethical considerations and awareness of human dynamics. He understood that the note had provided more than information. It had offered clarity, perspective, and a lesson in courage, attentiveness, and moral responsibility. Over the following weeks, the effects of these decisions became evident. Projects moved forward more smoothly, relationships with partners improved, and internal communication within the company became more thoughtful and effective. The CEO's approach had shifted subtly but meaningfully. His appreciation for human insight, honesty, and courage had grown, influencing not only his actions but also the culture of his organization. The note had been a catalyst, but the maid's daughter's courage had been the spark that ignited this positive change. The CEO remained mindful of this, carrying the lesson into future decisions and interactions. The maid's daughter continued her routine at the restaurant, yet she carried a quiet confidence in her awareness of the impact she had made. She understood that actions driven by courage and honesty could resonate far beyond immediate perception. Her experience reinforced her belief in the power of integrity, attentiveness, and moral courage. She continued to observe carefully, act thoughtfully, and approach situations with a balance of humility and confidence. The influence of her single act extended into the CEO's decisions, shaping outcomes that would have far-reaching effects. The CEO occasionally returned to the restaurant, not just for meals but to acknowledge the value of perspective and observation. He noticed subtle changes in the way staff interacted, the efficiency of service, and the attentiveness of those around him. He reflected on the importance of recognizing contributions from all sources, understanding that wisdom and insight often come from unexpected places. The maid's daughter remained a quiet presence, diligent and attentive, embodying the qualities that had created the moment of revelation and reflection. Through this experience, the CEO learned a profound lesson about the intersection of power and humility, observation and action, insight and courage. The note had revealed information, but the true significance lay in the courage and attentiveness that had delivered it. He recognized that leadership was not solely about authority, wealth, or expertise. It was about understanding, integrity, and the willingness to acknowledge and value contributions from every level of experience. The maid's daughter had exemplified these qualities, and her actions had created a ripple effect that extended far beyond the immediate moment. In the end, the story of the note became a quiet legend within the company and among the staff at the restaurant. It was a tale of courage, attentiveness, and moral strength, a reminder that even small actions, when guided by honesty and integrity, can create significant impact. The CEO carried the lesson with him in all aspects of life, applying it to leadership, decision-making, and interactions with others. The maid's daughter, though remaining humble and diligent, continued to embody the qualities that had made a difference, understanding that integrity and courage are timeless and powerful virtues. The note itself remained a symbol, not just of information, but of trust, courage, and the unexpected power of human insight. Its impact rippled through the CEO's decisions, the culture of his company, and the everyday awareness of those around him. The story concluded with a lasting message, that integrity, courage, and attentiveness, often found in the most unexpected places, can shape outcomes, influence decisions, and create a legacy far beyond what anyone might initially imagine. The CEO and the maid's daughter, connected through a simple act, had demonstrated that even the smallest gesture of honesty and bravery can resonate with profound and lasting consequences.